Hello everyone and welcome back to JavaScript lessons on Codecademy. So last time we finished the rock paper scissors project and that was quite enjoyable. So today we're going to be looking at for loops, loops but mainly for loops. So let's get started. So we're learning how to program because we don't want to do boring repetitive work. The computer should do that. The first exercise is a good example of exactly why you want to learn for loops. So what we need to do is use 5 console.log statements to print out the numbers 1 to 5. Try not to get angry, yeah. Head over to the next exercise to see how we can use a for loop. So there we go. Search text for your name. Oh, oops, that shouldn't have popped up. I have no idea why it popped up. That's weird. So first for loop. Instead of manually typing in console.log 5 times, we can use a for loop to do this. The aim of this exercise is just to show you how a for loop looks and demonstrate how useful it is. Subsequent exercises will A. Walk you through the syntax bit by bit, and B. Explain how the computer thinks as it executes a for loop. We initially focus on using for loops just to count numbers to keep things simple, but by section 3 we will show you how to do more fancy things. So that's fun. The for loop in the code will print out 1 to 5 and use far less code than you used in the previous exercise. Change the 6 to 11 and press save and submit code. This will see the computer print out 1 to 10. So what's 6 to 11? Oh, right, I've kind of already done this. There we go. So you need to change that 6 to 11, and when you save and submit, you get 1 to 10. If you put the 6 there, you get 1 to 5. So just that first part, the first half. Congratulations, you've just run your first for loop. But what you're probably really keen to do is write your own for loop. Below is the general syntax of the for loop. We want to focus on the first line in the next few exercises. So I will not go into too much detail because in the next few exercises we will be learning how it actually works. So every for loop makes use of a counting variable. Here our variable is called I. It's usually called the iterator. So what it would usually be is I, J, N or K, I believe. But it can have any name. So you can call it even your own name. You can call it, I don't know, browser. You can call it F, G, R, A, S, I don't know, whatever you want, literally, because it's a variable. So the variable has many roles, or what I like to call it, the iterator. The first part of the for loop tells the computer to start with a value of 1 for I. It does this by declaring the variable called I and giving it a value of 1. So you have var I equals 1. When the for loop executes the code in the code block, the bit between the curly brackets, it does so by starting off where I equals 1. So what we need to do is we need to change what this for loop does. This for loop starts off at 1 and will end at 10. Change the for loop such that it will start off at 5. So how we do that is at the definition of I, we change var I equals 5 instead of equals 1. So it starts counting at 5 and finishes at 10. And it finishes at 10 because if you get to 11, 11 is not less than 11, so it just exits the for loop. So let's move on. Ending the for loop. We know how to control where the for loop starts. How do we control where it ends? Well, the second part of the for loop determines that. So there's also another way, but I will explain that at the end of this current section. So we know how to control where the for loop... Okay, I already read that. What am I doing? So the syntax is var I equals 1, which we learned what it does last time. The second thing is do whatever is here while I is less than 11. So here this for loop will keep running until I equals 10, I while I is less than 11. So when I equals 2 or I equals 9, the for loop will run. But once I is no longer less than 11, so 11 or more, the loop will stop. We know that this for loop counts from 1 to 10. Change this for loop such that it starts at 4. So, okay, let's do that. change this for loop such that it counts up to and including 23, i.e. we do not want 24 to be printed out. So there are two ways you can do this. You can either do 24 like this, or less than or equal to 23. It's a personal choice. I prefer doing it less than or equal to because it's a bit clearer. And run your for loop and see it count from 4 to 23. So as we can see, it runs from 4 all the way up to 23. So let's move on. Oh, and also the other way to end the for loop is by using break. So literally writing break. And when the break is executed, it's just going to completely exit the for loop, ignoring everything that's after the break inside the curly brackets. So controlling the for loop. We can now control where the for loop starts and ends. What about controlling what happens in between? The examples we've looked at have used I equals I plus 1. This has meant we have incremented or increased the variable I by 1 each time. A more efficient way to code increment by 1 is to write I plus plus. We decrement down by 1 by writing I minus minus. Another way is as shown here, and the most inefficient way is doing I equals I plus 1 or plus 5 or whatever you want. We can increment by any value by writing I plus equals x, where x is how much we want to increment up by. Or you can do minus equals x to decrease or decrement by a certain number. For example, I plus equals 3 counts up by 3, so if I was 2, I would equal 5. We can decrement down by any value by writing minus equals x, as I said before. Be very careful with your syntax. If you write a loop that can't properly end, it's called an infinite loop. It will crash your browser. Well, I'm using Mozilla Firefox and it actually did not crash my browser. So it just asked me if I want to stop the script from running. So this code counts every number from 0 to 35. Make it start counting from 5. So instead of 0, we put a 5 there. Stop the counting when it prints out 50. So I will do my way, so less than or equal to 50. Only count every 5th number, so I want to increment I by 5. So currently it's incrementing by 1, but we want to increment by 5, so we do I plus equals 5. So if we save and submit, as we can see, we get from 5 to 50 in steps of 5. So in the next lesson we will be looking at more of about how it actually does this thing and how it works. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please click the like button. If you didn't like it, click the dislike button. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below. So until next time, goodbye.